right.
Good morning, Dan Gutierrez.
Ah, Good morning, Mr. Keller.
And good morning to watchers of the Intentional Living podcast. Welcome. This is an opportunity that Dan and I have from time to time to share our thoughts about the intentional living practice. Um, we dedicate this podcast to something that Socrates said a couple of years ago, I think it was. He said that the secret to change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And we've talked, and Dan, you and I, in this podcast many times about how the power of this intentional living practice that we have been involved in for many years now allows us to heal that which was in our past that showed up in our present and caused us problems and challenges and obstacles to happiness, and then to turn our focus then to the future, to the present and the future. What do I want now? What kind of life do I want to build for myself? And so that's what, for those of you who are new to the podcast, this is what we focus on here. And today we want to talk a little bit about one of the processes, the key processes that are involved in recovery generally. We call that surrender. And I think you have some thoughts that you want to share with us about that, Dan.
Um, yeah, I've been involved with several 12-step programs, and one of the key first steps to the programs are to surrender, to admit that I'm powerless over whatever my issue is at the time. Um, and I've also been doing accountability practice for quite some time. And the other day I was just sitting there thinking, and I'm going, what's the difference between accountability and surrender? Um, having surrendered and having been accountable, I noticed for me the two emotional body sensations, my emotions are very similar. That when I'm accountable for something and when I surrender to it, I get the same experience. And each time it's a moment of clarity. It's a moment of release, um, and a new episode in my life happens or starts to happen because I've been accountable for my behavior as well as I've surrendered. Um, I'm not fighting it anymore. You
And
know,
so for the newcomer, would you just review what that means? What does it mean to be accountable for our behavior?
Accountability for our program, intentional living, is me stating the data about my behavior without blame or judgment. Um, Me stating the data about my participation in relationships, people, places, and things without blame or judgment. And yeah, and surrender is me acknowledging um, that I'm powerless over um, a substance, a behavior, my family of origin dysfunction, unresolved childhood trauma. Um,
So the idea here is accounting in the sense of bookkeeping, that we're just listing the stuff in financial accounting, we're just listing the transactions. What happened? We're not judging them, or like you said, judge or blame. And so just for the newcomer to really get a sense of how we use this term, I think there's real value there in seeing the relationship to surrender because it starts with just neutral stating of the facts, which in a certain way is like releasing any emotional connection I may have to those facts.
yeah, for my experience with surrender, like accountability, when I surrender, I'm no longer in denial of what is. Um, I quit fighting. Um, the resistance, in that moment fades. I take a deep sigh. take a deep breath and exhale, and it's like, okay, I'm in the present moment, and yeah, this is the first step into to change, or first step in to yeah create change. Um, for me, I'm no longer fighting it. I'm no longer resisting the truth of things. So yeah, that's what it means for me to be accountable and surrendered at the same time. So yeah,
So so if I'm hearing you rightly, then we're saying that surrender is related to the willingness to stop blaming or judging ourselves for those behaviors or those states of mind that we're accounting for in an accountability practice.
yeah, surrender to the fact, my most recent um, situation that I found myself in is that I made a decision to sell my motorcycle, and so I think it was on Tuesday, and I'm sitting on the couch watching some videos about motorcycles, and all of a sudden I'm just sitting there and I start crying, and I hear myself say, "I really don't want to sell my motorcycle." And it's like, wow, that's okay. And 5 minutes later, same thing happens. And then so it's like, um, why don't you just surrender to the fact that you don't want to sell your motorcycle? Be accountable for the fact that you don't want to sell your motorcycle. And I was like, okay. So I did. And 10 minutes later, I was on my motorcycle riding it down to the consignment shop. Um, the truth is, I surrendered to the fact that I don't want to sell my motorcycle and it's time for me to do it. I choose to do it. Nothing wrong. It's just like, okay, you you've spoken the truth, and we're going to go down and sell the motorcycle. It's like, oh, okay, and I'm good with it. I haven't had that experience since, but that's for me is to surrender to the truth, and be accountable for it. I don't want to sell my motorcycle. Okay,
We know
yeah,
it's a great example because this is what we confront a lot in after recovery. So the old line about is before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. So once we do this, once we start recovery, none of our life problems go away. None of the challenges that we have, for whatever reason that you have decided that you were going to sell your motorcycle, presumably an adult decision based on assessments that you made about various dynamics in your life.
yep,
So you made the adult decision, I'm going to change or I'm going to sell the bike. And then at the same time, you had the experience, the internal experience of regret or whatever it was that led to that experience of crying. And this is typical of life. This is a good example of what life is. And I love the I love your example because that it demonstrates the power of surrender. It demonstrates the power of the accountability practice because we start our inquiry here with what's the relationship of surrender to accountability. I think there it is. You encapsulate it quite well. It's the willingness to be with sometimes things that seem paradoxical or things that seem contradictory. On the one hand, I'm going to sell my motorcycle for whatever reasons, following reasons in my mind. On the other hand, I don't want to sell it. And and so what you showed us is that a way, I don't know if it's the only way, but certainly a way to being with, or I like to say befriending that paradox is to just accept your feeling.
yeah,
And that's the accountability tree. If we feel what we feel the truth of our moment, and then we say what we want.
right. And the experience is it's a form of self-validation, um, and it's got nothing to do with the motorcycle. You
Yes.
know, it's just what's presenting itself. There's a, you know, there's a dynamic that runs through everything, and the motorcycle in this particular moment, the experience that I'm having with selling it is what's presenting itself. But uh, yeah, I mean, it's a fear, change. Um, but yeah, to just to hear myself say that I really don't want to sell my motorcycle. That's the truth. That's me surrendering to the fact, and I'm not fighting it anymore. And like I said, the reason that for me it works and the experience I had by surrendering or being accountable for my truth in the moment was the fact that 10 minutes later I'm on the bike going down to the consignment shop to sell it.
And
And
how were you feeling in that trip
I'm
10 minutes
feeling
later?
yeah, I felt positive. I felt it was like a weight had been lifted off of me.
Yeah.
Um, you know, the fear of, you're going to regret this, or, all those thoughts were, it's like they weren't there anymore.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, this is good. You know, I sometimes for me, sometimes I forget what surrendered is. You know, I could surrender. I mean, I've done that too with my health. Um, you know, I'm pre-diabetic. My last health check, and I'm creeping up on being diabetic. Um, Same thing, and it's just like, okay, I'm going to be a diabetic unless I change. And so it's like, okay, well, the numbers don't lie, so let's be accountable and surrender to the fact that, my behavior has led to this, my eating habits. Just take a deep breath. I'm responsible for my health. Um, and take a deep breath and surrender to the fact that I need help monitoring my health. And one of the solutions that presented itself after I surrendered, I can't do this by myself. All of a sudden, the option to use a continuous glucose monitor magically availed itself. So exactly what I was looking for, and with its help and my ability to monitor it and see the results of my behavior, I got myself back down to below pre-diabetic. And it's like, well, there it is again. When I come out of denial, when I surrender to the fact that, I don't know how to do this, um, things change for me. Be accountable. Those those numbers, your diabetes numbers or your A1C numbers, uh, you know, they're real. And one of the principles we have, we're always getting what we want. So literally, I want those numbers. And it's like, well, if you don't want those numbers, you need to change, you need to change your eating and, and exercise maybe, but let's just focus on the eating. And 33 pounds lost later, A1C numbers down 5.5, 5.4. It's like, okay, this is what surrender and accountability do for me.
Well, it's interesting. I'd like to point out there's two steps that occurred in that particular example that you're sharing with us. First, of course, is the surrender itself. And but the second thing is, and this also happened in your example about them selling the motorcycle. The second thing is happens is like when we surrender, and you said about the sale, when you surrendered to your feeling of not wanting to sell it, that in the aftermath of that there was a sense of relief. So when we surrender, we create a space for different action or different outcomes. And so in the case of your health, when you surrendered to the truth of what was going on in your body, you said the numbers don't lie, and that means that the chemical, electrical, magnetical situation of your body was yielding these numbers, that you are now free to make a decision to do something differently. And that, huh, in the middle of that freedom came some means by which to achieve new intentions. And so it makes me think that, and this may be the wisdom of the 12-step program, because the first step is the surrender step. It makes me think that um, there really can't be change until there's surrender.
Um, it can be temporary.
Yeah,
I have
good
the
point. Yeah,
I have the ability to coerce and pressure myself and hold it together for a short extended period of time. But for long term,
yep.
um, for me, in my experience, it does require surrender. And I can only say that 17 years later, I'm still clean and sober. Um, because I had that moment where it's like, I am powerless over this. And what do I can't, yeah, when I say I'm powerless over this, I'm no longer in denial. I'm not blaming anybody, and I'm not minimizing it. I'm in the truth. I'm powerless over this, and I need help. Or I got to do something different, because this isn't working.
It occurs to me that that's also a good example of the aphorism that we use for our podcast here from Socrates. So oftentimes the refusal to surrender is, as Socrates says, we're concentrating all of our energy on fighting the old. We're resisting change. And so we put all this energy into essentially maintaining a past that may have had value when we created the original state. Usually this is a result of childhood trauma, and we're just trying to find a way to stay safe and in a toxic environment. But that we don't need that anymore, as it turns out. And so the if I want to spend all my time, my energy building the new, to use the Socrates term, instead of fighting the old, then it requires me to, excuse me, let go of the fight. Essentially, stop fighting. That's
Right.
another way to think of surrendering or letting go. It's just stop fighting, stop resisting.
Yeah, it's yeah. For me, the resistance, quote unquote, resistance is a way to describe it, but it's also yeah. I'm struggle for the word right now, but is acceptance, and it just gives me it gives me a different emotional state in my body when I no longer I cling to an old habit of fighting or resisting everything as a way to create safety in my life.
Exactly.
That was the old model, was to fight everything. There's no glory in acceptance or surrender, right? So I'm just in my words. If you hear if I were to hear myself speaking right now, which I do, um, I see myself in an action or a behavior that is a fight and a struggle and resisting. And that's an old ingrained model about you have to fight everything. Everything's a battle. I mean, this is all the subconscious programming.
Right.
And all there's a myriad of reinforcements about always having to fight. Don't ever give in. There's no, There's only one first place and all this, But yeah, there is an option. And for me, it was, fighting this is not working. Okay, that's another surrender. This is not working. You
Right.
thinking the answer is not working. And for me, I've always had the thing of always got to figure it out for myself. So hence I've struggled with this, and finally, usually at the end, I give up. It's like, okay, the, you know, you can't say I didn't try. I hung in there to the very end, and then I finally caved in and, admitted that I was powerless, but I sure tried. And it's like, okay, so we're going to start surrendering quicker. We're gonna just be accountable for our truth, right? It's about creating the results I want in life. And if quote unquote I have to surrender to the fact of whatever it is, or I want to be accountable. And to be honest, the topic, how are surrender and accountability related? I come late to the surrender, but when I got the option to being accountable, that had a completely different tone. Accountability, oh hell yeah, I could do that. And I realize now that's I saw that it was, so I wouldn't have to surrender because surrender doesn't fit the old model. But accountability is, yeah, we can be accountable. It's got nothing to do with losing or that narrative, giving up.
Or being weak.
Yeah. So yeah, let's go with the accountability. Yeah, yeah. That's more, or that's less, uh, I don't know. But yeah, it's the same thing for me. I mean, like I said, um, accountability or surrender. I managed to do this when I was in ACA. Here's another example. I'm looking at my life and I'm trying to figure out, what I want in life, and I had to surrender to, I wanted to get in relation to get back in the dating pool, 5, 6 years ago. And I had to surrender, I had to be accountable, say it out loud that I did not know what it took to be in a long-term, nurturing, loving relationship. Man, that took a long time because, the best of my ability, it's like I know what to do. Well, and here again, the truth does not, the evidence proves, number one answer, no, you don't. And that was a struggle. But again, being accountable for the fact that I did not know how to have a successful long-term relationship and surrender to that fact allowed me to expand my vision to take in new information instead of being locked into the old. Uh, and it's changed my relationship life, that's for sure. Um, yeah, I don't know how that came across, but it's the surrender. It gives me the option to choose again. I'm not fighting it. Um, I'm more in alignment with the truth,
Exactly.
and
Well,
that's what.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
One of the things that John taught us, which I think is another insight into the actual practice of surrender for me, was his phrase, "I give myself permission." So I give myself permission to resist. I give myself permission to not want to sell the bike. I give myself permission to want to be pre-diabetic or whatever that is a surrender, and I like it because it's an active verb. I give myself permission, and it's a loving act. I give myself permission is another way of saying I accept myself just the way I am. And that goes back to what you said at the very beginning of the podcast. There's a relationship between surrender and acceptance. And so, for those of you who may be struggling with the idea of surrender, I offer you to consider using that phrase. I give myself permission to be angry. I give myself permission to feel stupid. I give myself permission to be weak. Whatever it is that the truth is that that's showing up in our consciousness, that that another part of our mind goes, you shouldn't do that. That's bad. There's where I use that phrase all the time. All right, I give myself permission to be angry. I give myself permission to not want to talk to that person. I give myself permission to not want to do my homework, whatever it is. And I find that that's very, very helpful because I almost always get that sense of relief when I use that phrase because I'm now in touch with the truth. It's just another proactive way of getting in touch with the truth of our actual experience.
Yeah. What just came across my mind, it takes a lot of energy to resist something.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you've ever tried to, you know, pick something up, some heavy object up and hold it. It takes a lot of effort and mental and physical effort. But for me, fighting something is a psychological exercise in energy. I have to hang on to it. I have to give it energy to maintain it. And when I become accountable or I surrender to the truth, um, I no longer have to give it energy. It's like, there it is. It's out. It's the truth. All right. So that's what is it I really want to do?
Well,
Uh,
oftentimes that expenditure of energy has an addictive quality to it too as well. So we become addicted to the resistance. We become addicted to the feeling state that we get when we're fighting ourselves without being aware of it. It's just sort of a place that we gravitate toward, again, as a result of unhealed childhood trauma and
right.
the reactions that a little boy or a little girl figured out in the moment as a way to try to avoid the most unpleasant effects of that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's one of those things. It's learned and it's been reinforced over time, a myriad times. And so can the surrender and you to be
Yep.
accountable for things. It doesn't make you, that's the no blame and judgment thing. Uh, if you just surrender to the fact that, whatever it is, I'm terrified of, being in a relationship, or I'm terrified of, I'm not good enough at work. Um, you acknowledge these things, or you take a moment to be accountable or surrender to them. It gives me that energy that was there holding it. Now I can put that energy to focus in on where do I want to put my energy? Well, I want to surrender more. I intend to surrender more. I intend to be accountable more. Um, that's I think my theory here is that we only have X amount of energy. And if I'm my my energy budget is going on to holding on to these things, whatever I'm resisting, whatever I'm afraid of. When I surrender to it, or become accountable for it, I free up that energy to use to create what it is um, in my life, rather than, not no judgment here, just the way I got to say this. Um, Rather than another example would be I'm paying somebody, at the storage facility to store my old shit, my old memories, my old fears and stuff. And when I clean out the closet, or I become accountable, or I surrender to that this stuff is old and I don't need it anymore, I free up that space to create, or that energy, or now I have money to spend on a new life experience that I may have wanted. Now I can afford to take a pottery class or go to the gym instead of paying, to store these old memories.
Right.
So accountability and surrender gives me access to creating the life that I want with the energy that I've been using to resist. That's the Socrates is saying. Um,
It's exactly
and
right. It's
and
exactly using the energy to build the new instead of fight the old.
correct.
That's a perfect example of that. So our time is coming to an end here. So I want to thank you for those thoughts and for reminding us on the practicality and the value of surrender, learning how to surrender. Sometimes it's just little things, sometimes it's big things, but it's all a practice. And it when we learn to surrender, we automatically create space for something new. I like your analogy there. We stop paying to store stuff we don't need anymore, and we use that fund or that energy to create what's in our heart's desire to create.
Absolutely.
Um, I want to invite everybody who's watching, if you'd like to learn more about our process, we do this work in group, and we have 4 group meetings a week, all on Zoom, so you can access us, join us from any place in the country or the world. And information on how to join a meeting and when they are, what times they are, and so forth will be listed at the end of the podcast. So please feel free to come and join us and uh, take on this wonderful adventure of creating the life that you want today and not tomorrow. So before we wrap up, any last minute thoughts, Dan?
Um, well, I'm gonna create a new statement. I'm gonna add to an old one. Surrender and accountability is the key to knowing myself.
Can't say fairer than that.
All right.
All right,
Appreciate
thanks a
you being
lot.
here,
And
and
thanks everybody for joining us. Take care.
take care.